I think I'm kind of the ugly duckling in here. To start with the first things first, what I care about is making money fast, but also making money in the fun way. And this is one of the fun ways. And then I actually come from the machine learning and psychology side of this. And I don't specifically buy into behavioral economics. I think we can have discussions around that, but my claim would be that behavioral economics in most cases are basically just evolutionary psychology wearing a briefcase and a suit, right? But I will get into that as well. So I actually put this, so I'm interested in what works, how fast can I get to verify it works, and what is the risk of me making a decision on this. And then the why it works basically is something we can discuss at our Christmas party. And that is not all true, because why it works makes us do the better next experiment. But it was just to put it on the spot on that one. So you had to come up with some sort of catchy title. So I don't know if I succeeded on that one. I'm not sure it works. Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah. All right. So I put in a lot of shit in here. An introduction, that shit is boring. So I will do really quick. So what I would like to talk about is how do we actually design a treatment? How do we get to the point where we thinking what works? I have a couple of things that we're doing. Then how do we actually assess the potential of a certain experiment that we're going to run? We run experiments all the time, but how do we assess which ones are we going to run? And then I would claim that actually setting up the experiments, all the things we're talking about today, is the easiest part of all of this when you're working with it from an organization point of view. And that part...
Sorry, so you have to stay here so they can see you.
But then I have to cannot see them.
Okay.
Can I do like this? Yes? Yes. All right. Thank you. And for that part, I actually don't have many answers. But I would really love that we could, this forum could develop some sort of discussions around that. How do we do this within organizations? How do we get it entangled in the way of working in an organization? And can we just ask questions along the way, because some of this might be a little fast. So if it's 10 slides ago, then I might have forgotten what I said, right? So what we do in Penny is basically we're developing software that leads insurance companies to expose insurance in various different digital channels. They are selling, most insurances are sold through partners, so the partners have a lot of digital channels, and then they can expose it and sell their insurances there instead of on their own direct pages. That of course also means that if we do, let's just say, some sort of embedment of a car insurance, and we do it with 25 partners in the Nordics, then we have a sample size in a week to do all the experiments we want. So we're giving a good position on doing experiments in this case. But this also means that in terms of competition, the ones doing the best experiments, getting the knowledge in there fastest, or the executed insights back into the platform, are the ones winning this game in the insurtech industry. That's, I think, it's still not working. Yes, yeah. So we're doing this in all over Europe, and we don't want to spend time on that. But let's talk about this guy. So he developed a really, you know who that is, right? That's Karl Marx. He developed a really beautiful theory about how economic incentives drive people, right? Or actually drive individuals who just develop it for the wrong species. And then we have the other guy who developed utilitarianism, right? And I have never seen that species that actually works the way he claims it does. And now we have behavioral economics, and then we get stuff like this. I would assume most of you have seen this one. This is all the biases right now discovered, right? And it's beautiful work, but in there somewhere, if you look at it, there's an optimism bias and there's a negativism bias. And what are you going to do with that? How do you work with that? That would be point of the same thing if I go to my doctor and say, would you please cure me? I'm not going to give you the symptoms, but you will get my login for the New England Medicine Journal, and then you can just look up all the symptoms that is in the world, and would you please then come up with a treatment for me, right? So that is to the point of this. What I think actually we need to do this, so you can do this at home. What I would claim is that if you take your index finger on your right hand, do it, also at home. And then you draw the number 6 in the air, right? Good, you got that. Put the finger down, and then you do with your right leg. Then you send it clockwise in circles. And then you try to draw the 6 at the same time, right? So what happens with your legs? Leg. Yeah, it changed direction, right? Completely automatically. So at some point, 4.2 million years ago, when we actually lived in trees, that made perfect sense. We don't have to spend energy on coordinating the arms and the legs. So, and in the case that's been the evolution, this has never been a disadvantage. And then evolution works the way it does. It doesn't get removed from our body. And I tend to think of all the things where economists or behavioral economists are talking about biases or irrational behavior the same way. So I would never claim that people are acting on irrational behaviors. I would also claim most of this is deep rationality that is rooted through generations instead. That might not make sense living in the 21st century. But please remember that civil society is only a blink of an eye in the time frame of human mankind, right? So we changed a lot of these things, and that's why this is one of the frameworks we work a lot with, saying this is the human cognition. Of course, there's a very simple way to put it. And we have in the top all the cultural part, the ones that are conscious. This be language, identity, holistic causality, and stuff like that. And then you have way down the bottom, you have all our biology, right? Non-conscious stuff, and there's numbers actually. So everyone, when they're being born, can do the math around 1, 2, and 3. From the second we're born. The funny thing, it's not really impressive because mice, rats, hens, and stuff like that can also do that. Up in the top, you have all the relative processes that are linked to our culture. And in the bottom, we actually have the genuine processes. So those are general across humankind. And what we need to know is that, of course, there's a lot of less space in the top. Humankind won the evolution based on the fact that we were the best of optimizing energy and getting the most out of the energy we put into the world. So we are in the case where we want to spend we want to spend as less energy as possible. The top is causing us to spend a lot of energy. So that's why there's less space up there. There's more space in the bottom. We can do multiple things down in the bottom. All of our cultures have roots in our biology. A very simple thing would be that time is horizontal. If you're actually trying to convince some colleague that time is vertical, you say, so I'm running this project. It might be 3 weeks or it might be 3 months. This just feels wrong in your body actually doing this. And then our language have been developed the same way. So we're looking into the future, looking ahead in the future. It's all horizontal when we do that. So there's root down to our biology, but it's still unconscious. And then it's cross-cultural. That is the important part of this. When we're doing great experiments, we can do it for all of humankind and possibly for mice and rats and hens and stuff like that. So what is really important then is when we look at information processing, is that stuff that are in the top, we can process 40 bits per second when it's actually on, when the top is entered, right? The other part is processing 11 million bits per second all the time, all the freaking time. You cannot turn that shit off. So that would mean that you have some sort of, you have the strength between those two systems, if you want to go the Kahneman way, that is 1 to around 275,000, right? So we need to be better at what is going on down here and how do we actually make treatments for down there. Yes. Oh, sorry. And that's my main problem with this coming from economy and becoming behavioral economy, is that we're trying to disprove economy that I think has never existed. Basically, of course it existed, but not in humankind. And then you start to tend of doing treatments as top-down processes. So a simple example would be this one. There's not a red color on this picture. And you can all get the slide and sit with your color picker tonight and see if you can find a red color. But you guys know that red is, strawberries are supposed to be red, but there is not a red color. Yeah. And maybe you can roll the video. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Very, very simple one, hopefully. Yes. So what we have here is basically 15 dots moving on screen, right? And then your brain is just filling in the rest of this. When we know how your brain is filling in the rest, filling in the blanks in here, then we can make 15 dots moving on a screen have gender. I think it comes just in a second. Right? And we can also make it have a gender the other way around, or a more masculine gender. It's still just 15 dots moving on screen. Right? And we can do the same thing with how the emotions of these 15 dots are. So what is, are they happy or are they sad? Right? So basically what happens is that for any apparatus you have that perceives information from the environment, you are not perceiving information from the environment, basically. Let's just take the eyes. There are twice as many neurotransmitters going from your brain to your eyes, telling your eyes what they should see, as there is going from your eyes to your brain, telling your brain what they see. So it's not a top-down process when we're looking at how we are processing informations. And the things that are filtering out from the brain is basically developed million years ago when we lived in another society. So we all know this story about Darwin. I hope so, at least. And I think it's really funny that, of course, we can all come to terms with the fact that the beak of this bird changes whatever they need to eat in the habitat they're living in, right? But then we come to the point where the human brain basically hasn't changed that much. And in our arrogance, we're like, nah, the thing with the beak, that's all right. This thing, nope, that we're not carrying things from our ancestors here. Nope, not at all. I know I process information in the perfect way. And so I think we need to, and we do that very often when we look at what we want to do as a treatment, then we actually look at is, if this treatment should work, the feature of human people, would it be feasible that this had been developed through an evolutionary process? That is one way to assess if you want to do the treatment, if you don't know anything. So very simple example is now I just had a third child, right? So there is nothing more insane that the first 12 months of a woman having a child. So what they're doing there is, so you know, all of you should know that at least, that a 12-month-year-old child is never wrong. It cannot be wrong. You cannot teach them to anything, so they cannot be wrong. So whatever you as a mother has of instinct you think you need to do can be completely overridden. If the child says, that's not now. Maybe you had a plan on you going to the bathroom. Nope, you did not. So the capability of a female to actually override yourself for 12 months is insane. And it's insane that we, of course, females have developed, and I'm not binary looking at genders here. Maybe I should have posted some trigger warning here. But then female gendered, gender as a spectrum, then they have developed that. That makes sense, right? So we can all agree that mothers millions of years ago who have had this capability has possibly fostered stronger kids, more livable kids, less infants die, right? And then over time, millions of years, then of course there's only that gene left, right? The same way goes that we know from science that there are none more productive on the working or in the work environments than the new fathers. That makes sense, right? So if you actually put in an extra person or two in your family, then you all of a sudden just need to ramp up. You need to deliver food on the table every night, and maybe you actually do a double because you never know about tomorrow, right? And that shit matters. And a million years ago, the fathers who had this feature, of course, fostered better kids, stronger kids, more livable, and their kids actually lived on. And that's why that genome is actually transferred to the next generation. So it makes sense, and that is one way to actually assess what are we going to do. When do we think this treatment works? Does it fit a feature that would have been developed over evolution, or does it not? Yeah. So when we do this, we also look at, of course, what do we know something about? Does the data indicate something? But then we actually look at, does this make sense in an evolutionary perspective? And then if we still have not any answers here, we tend to go with my mom, because she's a nice person, but she's not the sharpest tool in the shed. So if we can do a treatment that works on her, it might just work on a lot of people. And then lastly, we have opinions, but we don't work that much with them. Okay, so let's get on to what works. Shit. We all know models like this, right? So we have some sort of population, and then we cram that in to two different versions and randomize select them, and then we'll see those versions, what actually worked best. Right? This should not. Thanks to Francesco, we can actually show a little thing here. Let's start at the one over here. Sorry, it's in Danish. Yeah, it's done. Then you can show the other one. Yes.
How do we get a full screen?
Just escape. Or in the bottom.
This one?
Yeah. Yes.
Over here. Community X.
Yeah, the X in top.
This one?
No, it was.
Right above them. We're able to see. Over here. Yeah, it's the I don't have a keyboard as well, so that's the thing.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we have the other one. All right. Did anyone see the difference?
One is bigger?
Now. So what, and it's actually Francesco who did this one. So we wanted to test out what does happen when we add 4 pixels of shadow to the CTA button when you enter the informations instead of not having that.
And the movement.
And the movement that happens with the shadow, right? So try running it again. Yeah. So that's basically because we looked at the data and we saw we actually have a very specific problem at that point. And then we need to figure out what do we need to do to get that working, right? And it's not more complex than that. Yeah, go back. So I think we actually, can you see it here? And it makes more better sense, doesn't it? But what we actually have is then a relative uplift on that, but by just adding 4 pixels of shadows. I think it took us a little over a week to get the result on that. And that's a really key point in here is that, of course, we are focusing early stages when we want to test a CTA. We're focusing early stages on the flow because then we will get more people in there. We'll get a bigger sample size. It doesn't really matter if it works here or if it works later in the flow as well, because then we can get faster to the solution, right? So I want to show you a couple of other examples. The numbers here are not completely correct because I'm not allowed to show for business purposes the exact numbers, but the relative numbers are matching, right? So what we have here, and again, it's in Danish, and try to tell this is mental accounting, but I'm not sure because I'm not a scientist. So we can buy some sort of insurance on account of this being Black Friday. Sounds really stupid. And you can get 100 kroner in rebate for the first year, right? And then you can also buy it, and then you can get 100 kroner in a gift certificate. And this one over here, so like from the baseline, a little more than 10% up, and this one over here is 140% up, right? And my thesis, I don't know because I don't care about why, but my thesis is, of course I care about why, otherwise I wouldn't have some sort of hypothesis around this, is that when you're at this space and you're trying to purchase this insurance, you still think that you're going to purchase the insurance. So over here, the money I'm saving, they are right now residing on my account. Whereas the money over here, they're giving to me. This is free money. I still have the perception that I was, either way, I was going to buy this insurance, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be on this webpage. So, of course, we thought about what could we do with that? Could we make it even more aggressive? Could we have the next Black Friday and then be like, all right, so if you buy before 12, then you get 1,000 kroner in gift certificate. If you buy before 18, then you get 800 and so on, right? So, and then of course we removed, when we were past 12 o'clock, we had to remove the other ones because nobody would want to see that they could have gotten a better deal. So it ended up looking like this. But the data on this is quite enormously because this is the baseline. This was the estimation done by the CFOs, and then this was our guess on it, and this was what we saw, right? That's a freaking insurance on Black Friday. And I think somebody should look at the data for this and actually try to map out what happens mental accounting wise, because I'm not sure in it. And just so to be sure, we're not selling insurances that was supposed to be sold the day after that. We're back to baseline afterwards. So what we also tested out in various different tests is what does the value of the gift card? It's apparently better to give a gift card. So let's move on and say, what does the value of the gift card actually means? And it turns out that it doesn't mean that much in terms of sales. So the first gift card, so the first value of it, the 100 kroner, means something. And my assumption here is that the gift card is actually working against procrastination. So just as with every other financial product in this freaking world, it's really, 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 really hard. So it took me a month to actually ramp up the courage to start looking at it as insurance, right? And then when I look at it, it's like, whoa, I cannot understand. I have no idea what they're saying to me. I don't understand anything. And the easy way out here is, of course, the red cross in the corner. saying, I'm going to look at this tomorrow, right? And I'm not going to do it tomorrow, but then we'll keep on going that. Whereas the gift card then tend to work as a decision tool. So it doesn't really matter how much extra value we add to the gift card. Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is very interesting. There's a clear parallel in charitable giving.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, practitioners thought that matching, when you give $1, a benefactor gives $1.
Yeah.
There was a widespread belief that higher matches would bring in more money. It kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And actually, they find exactly the same thing. Like one-to-one matches, every dollar is matched with $1. Has a big jump, but higher matches don't make much of a difference.
And economically, it doesn't make any sense to actually add the extra value. So nice. All right. So what we tend to do in here, and it's really hard. So there's, of course, the deduction way of working with theory and data. And then there's the other way around. I'm sorry, Francesco, you had to be in there. So working from data to theory. And we're trying to work both ways in the same time, right? So that to make us faster in this, the faster we can get a result. I'm not gonna go into the Bayesian statistics in here. We can have Francesco do a thing on that at some point. But this is basically what we're doing. So when we're looking at assessing which experiments to run, then I would assume that in a scientific context, you want to have certainty. You want to have reproducible results and certainty to a certain level. We can always talk about p-values and the problem with them, but let's skip that as well. But what we are doing is basically we're saying, no, we're not that interested in certainty. We are actually more interested in our risk of being wrong. If we make a judgment call between two different variations, we just make a call which one is going to roll on. We're not that interested in how much difference there are, and we're not interested in making sure that the one is better, but the risk of being wrong is the important thing here when we make a decision. And then, of course, if we have the capabilities in the solution and the treatment and stuff like that, to do continuous monitoring is if there's going to arise some sort of problem, then we can live with a higher risk of being wrong because we're continuously monitoring if we see problems, right? But this doesn't stop there. So what we need to divide this by is, of course, the expected impact times the speed of the result. So right now, when we're doing Bayesian statistics on this, we can live with a 80% certainty on this part. But if I get the result a hell lot easy, a lot faster, the expected impact is quite enormous, and we actually have the capabilities of running continuously monitoring of this, then I can live with 60 all of a sudden. That's down to something called Thomson's paradox. So if you're going to Las Vegas and you have two slots machine, right? You know that one, and then you have $100 to put in there. And you, of course, as the great experimenter you are, you say, I'm going to bet the first 50 on finding out which one I'm going to place the last 50 in, right? So you put $1 in the first slot machine and it says jackpot, and then you put $1 in the next and it says nothing. And then you put $1 in the first slot machine and it says jackpot, and then $1 in the next and it says nothing. Then you put $1 in the first slot machine and it says jackpot, $1 in the last one and it says nothing. Then are you going to continuously running your experiment for the next until you spend $25 on the second slot machine? While you think that, well, until now, I should be running just the first one, right? So when are you going to cash in on your result is actually what is important to us. Of course, divided by the risk of being wrong, because that would be important. So the last thing is, I actually also took this one from you, Francesco. I didn't really inform you about that. But when we look at how do we do a process of setting up an experiment, then there's a lot of things in there. And then here we are actually creating the experiment, right? But this one is only for the process around the experiment. So what happens afterwards? So how do we embed this into a product? How do we embed this into everything we do afterwards? And then that's just for all the things we can put down on paper, that we can document the processes we're doing from here on out. then there's the cultural part, so that I really need for us to dig into at some point, right? Because we all in business, everybody learned that model, right? So we are looking at the leaders that are giving us answers, and nobody's saying, all right, so Steve Jobs, that was pretty random, right? There might be 200 people that have done exactly the same way as Steve Jobs, just 5 seconds later or 5 seconds before that, and failed miserably, but we are not hearing from them. We are all reading business magazines saying the Steve Jobs way, right? And this is what we're learning in companies, right? Whereas we also have Voltaire, who actually said we should judge a man by the questions you're asking. But everyone is looking this way. We're all looking to our leaders for answers, not for questions. And how do we build an organization, a culture where failure is actually something we talk about? So we talk about having KPIs for our lab is basically how many run experiments we have, not how much are we improving, because I would assume that nobody's going in to make an experiment that would be stupid. I would assume that nobody's going there for making a worse solution. That would be so just making the experiments are the thing we need. But this is really hard for the department that's working with that to roll out to the rest of the company, because somebody needs to give answers, somebody needs to give directions, and how do we fit that in with companies? Yeah, so that's basically it.